Alright folks, we got good old Country Jeff in here on the gas tank. I've seen him before. So cheers, that's nice. Anyway, he's gonna sing one for you. Here we go.
We'll start with you and talk about how did you hear about these guys?
Yeah, how did all of this happen?
Yeah.
So I used to work, I got out of film school and I was trying to make music videos and short films and things like that to build up a reel. And at the time I worked at the Wiltern, which was like a really cool concert space in Los Angeles. And there was a guy who was like the backstage guy. And he was the cool dude, he was from New Zealand. And I was like, what's your favorite band? You've seen all the bands. And he goes, Split Lip Rayfield. I never heard of that. He's like, oh, they're playing at a show in a couple weeks, you gotta check them out. And so I was like, well, if anyone has a favorite band, what is it? Okay, oh boy. If anyone has a favorite band, then I think they're worth checking out. So I went to go see these guys at some little place in LA that didn't have a lot of people at it because it's not, I think, the genre that most people in LA are into. But I was super into it. And then probably a few months later, I saw that they were going on the West Coast tour, and I reached out to their website and was like, what if you come out and I can shoot a music video of you guys? You don't have to do anything. I'll just follow you around and shoot it, and I'll stay out of your hair, and you'll get a video, and I'll get something for my reel. And they kind of begrudgingly agreed to it, or I think somebody agreed to it, because I felt like when I showed up, they were like, who the fuck is this guy?
That's true.
And so I show up at this show, and I've got this Super 8 camera, and I'm trying to film this like film footage, and I ended up being in a car following them from LA to Northern California and all the way up to Seattle, I think is how long I followed them for. And so when I was done, Kirk, who had been basically insulting my tattoos the whole time, I do have really bad tattoos, but he really was riding me for them and calling me dork dong and whatever. And he was like, you gotta go to Kansas and film my solo band. And I was like, I thought you hated me, but okay. I'll go to Kansas. I mean, why not? I've never been. And he made it sound like it was gonna be this incredible thing. And I was like, well, I'll go film his solo tour. And so then I did that, which was kind of, a little sad. And, And so I'm sitting there with this footage of them on the West Coast and this footage of the solo tour that I don't really know what to do with. And then at some point, while I'm kind of struggling through editing this stuff, I heard about the cancer diagnosis, and I reached out to him directly when I heard he was going on tour. And I was like, I have to film this. I don't know what I'm going to do with it, or I didn't really have an idea in mind for like, this is going to be a film that people are going to want to see. I just was like, someone has to film this, and that was basically what happened. Yeah.
So the original interaction was to shoot a video.
Just to shoot a music video.
Which was the Truth and Lies video, right?
Which was the Truth and Lies video, but I have really bad eyes, and when you're looking in the little camera thing, I guess it corrects like you're wearing glasses. So I didn't realize that the entire 50% of the footage was out of focus the whole time.
I thought it was an effect.
No, I looked perfect through the thing, but then when I developed it, it was like half of it was messed up. So I'm like, it was kind of a series of like, I don't know, I had this half in focus music video, I had this weird tour where we slept in bars, like I didn't know what I was going to do with any of it, you know?
Have you done anything like it since?
No.
Lesson learned. Wise man.
I mean, so basically the way it finally got finished was I had kind of like what you see that's in 4:3, like this stuff that's kind of TV looking more. It's cropped on the sides. That was all the stuff I shot. And then I finally sat down and was like, okay, I gotta process like this loss and these feelings. And it was really intense watching it, thinking about it, looking at the shows. And I was like, I gotta finally sit down and get this done. So they were coming back into town, and I thought, well, there's a bunch of interviews I need to get to kind of fill in the gaps. But then it turned out I had to leave town, so I had to have a friend of mine interview you guys. I don't know if you remember.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, and then we did an interview with Amanda, and we ended up like, finally I felt like I had enough kind of talking head stuff to try to tell a story. Yeah.
How long of a time period between the first interaction, like the filming?
Like 4 years.
But we're talking about 30 years now. So this is a very, I think, sort of a pivotal, maybe not be the right word. No, it is pivotal. That is documented in this thing. What was your all's reaction to him coming into the scene at that time? To shoot the video and then subsequently later.
I was fine with it. I was, it'd be something fun to do. I'm a dork, so I would do stuff on the camera all the time. So I thought it was fun.
Yeah, it felt pretty good. I mean, I think the way it was pitched originally, I think it was through Kirk or management people, that they were like, yeah, this guy's going to meet you up and they're going to follow you around in this little car and film you and make a music video. And it just seemed kind of like, oh yeah, that's the next step, make a music video. Like, it made perfect sense. And then, you know, we got along well, and you didn't seem too put off by our kind of backstagey, I don't know, we didn't have any big concept that we were going to be super entertaining and just being filmed like that. But I love the way that video turned out. The Truth and Lies video is my favorite one.
The part that's in focus, yeah.
But yeah, we were glad to have kind of that forward motion. It seemed like a cool thing, and we were open to it.
I think it's pretty clear that when they're all meeting in the cabin and they're going to practice for the first time, that Kirk had not told them I was going to be there filming. So I think you can see they each walk in there and they go, oh, look who it is.
Kirk liked to pull surprise. He was a surprise guy.
So this would have been like 2005 was when the video shoot.
Yeah, I think it was like 2005 and 2006, and then I finally started really working on it in 2010, and then we did one big screening in Wichita, maybe 2011, does that seem right? And that would have been the last time I was in Kansas, and was kind of really pleasantly surprised to come back. It's been really nice. Yeah, you're here. Thanks.
And so you guys touched on it a little bit, sort of the origins of how this whole thing came to be, but maybe go in a little bit deeper. Like, you all had played in different bands here and there, but like, talk to us about the origins of Split Lip Rayfield.
Well, Jeff and I shared an apartment in the hood, and Kirk and I were in a band called Technicolor Headrush. And then from that, we spun off another band called Winking Spaniard, where Kirk and I were both the drummers, and we had 2 bass players and 2 guitar players, and we played 45-minute unrehearsed songs. We would rehearse on a regular basis, but we would never play those songs again. And so we did that, and then Technicolor Headrush. Actually, like, Kirk started this band with these 2 guys called Scrowbelly, and I started banding with these 2 guys, Mitch and John called Hula Pop. And then we merged the band, got rid of those other two guys, and then we created Scroat Belly. And Jeff, we were already roommates and friends, and he and band members, and he had another band, and he was just churning out like all the local flyers that were badass. Jeff was turning them out for like Winking Spaniard, for the Sunshine Family, which was Jeff's band, and Scroat Belly and Technicolor Head Rush, and there were, you know, all this Tanglewood signs that he was working at. If you went to his art talk earlier, this place was the hub of all the badass posters and all the great rock and roll artwork was coming out of this dude's shop.
And it's rehearsal space.
And we would play, we would practice there, Technicolor Head Rush would practice. Kirk worked there sometimes, and he would do the signs, you know, spray the sandblasting. But anyway, that's where we got started, and then we started taking Scroat Belly to Winfield, to the Bluegrass Festival, and we met Eric, you know, White Trash Express, the Creek Bank Ghetto Boys, and that's how it all got rolling. That's how we all met each other. That was the Wichita connection, and then we met the Lawrence connection, which was Eric and Mike Horan and Calvin Bennett.
Yeah, and I've been playing in like electric rock band, like loud bands, and just started going to the Winfield, to the Bluegrass Festival, and the band, I kind of got interested in like, this is pretty cool, and I'm kind of like this music, and I'm kind of interested in, I played bass in those bands, and then the electric band dissolved, and I moved to Kansas City, and I was like, I want to build a wash tub bass. And I had lived with my old high school friend Mark, and he was a sculptor, and he made assemblages of them. So he had tons of junk at his house. And I was like, hey, I want to build a wash tub bass. And he's like, I don't have a wash tub, but I have this gas tank. And we were like, it's hollow, it will work as that. And he had a Boy Scout flagpole, and I had overheard someone at Winfield talk about using weed eater line as a string on a wash tub bass. I was better than just using rope. So he made it, and it just sat on the floor like, you know, like wash tub style. I was like, this is fine. It's okay. But then he also had a neck broken off of an actual upright bass, and I was like, why not just take that neck and bolt it onto this thing? So we did that, and I kind of plunked around on it. I was put on cassettes and kind of try and play along to them with it. And I was like, I think I can build a better one than this. So then I was working I had started working at a screen printing shop down in the Bottoms in Kansas City in the 90s when there was nothing down there. Except there was this one weird junkyard. So I went to the guys there and told them what I was doing. They didn't really care about that. And I was like, I want to buy that gas tank that's in that pile of junk over there. And they were like, well, what will you give us for it? I told them I will, how about $5? Just bring it back and show us what you made out of it. And I said, okay. And I went, like a week later, I came back and I was like, here it was. And there was like old dudes with newspapers. And I was like, who is this guy? Anyway, that's how that thing got going. And then I ended up back in Wichita, and Kirk kind of was like, that thing is cool. Let's learn some songs. And it just sort of went from there.
Has it been the same exact tank this entire time?
Same one.
Yeah, being the Lawrence guy, because everything was down in Wichita, and I was in a couple of bands in Lawrence, Creek Bank Ghetto Boys, and a band called Lose Revenge, and we were going down to Winfield, and my best friend from high school got sucked into this bluegrass vortex. He's like, come with me down to Winfield. What? Acoustic? Ugh. Okay. But anyway, we met all these fine Wichita people, and time moved on a little bit, and Scrope Belly was already happening, and Split Lip was sort of happening already with the original bass player, or banjo player Dave Lawrence with Kirk and Jeff. Jeff was running merch for Scrope Belly, and Kirk was very interested in, he was drawing me into stuff, and I started playing pedal steel with Scrope Belly a little bit, and Jeff was the merch guy, and we had a moment where the bass came on tour, and there was a moment like in New York, we played it CMJ, which is the College Music Journal Festival. It's kind of cool indie festival up in New York and Brooklyn. And we played this Scrope Belly show at Brownie's outside of, what's that park called in Brooklyn? Anyway, I can't remember. Tompkins Square Park. And the show was fine, but it was in the middle of the day, and then after that, we went out and busked on the street with Jeff and all of us, and there was only a few tunes at that point, and but we made like $60 and an 18-pack of beer or something like that in half an hour, and it was like, we're on to something.
And the next day we had that show in New Jersey at the Botanical Gardens. We hired Scrope Belly. And that was just a terrible weekend for Scrope Belly. But it was a great weekend for Split Lip, because I was like, well, we like this shit.
We figured out that people had this connection to that acoustic thing that was not quite hee-haw bluegrass. It was like something else. Like there was this kind of punk rock element and some leaning towards tradition, because we all kind of grew up with, maybe classic country music, and then had this divergency in our, youths of punk and metal and whatever, and it all just kind of jumped together. I think that's kind of how it started, was a big happy accident.
But Eric, you're kind of a wizard with musical instruments. At what point does the banjo enter your life?
Well, the banjo entered my life when I was like a sophomore at KU, and my roommates were all these like deadheads, and they only liked Fish, Grateful Dead, and Blues Traveler. The only three things they liked. And this New Year's Eve, they wanted to tune into this radio show to listen to the Grateful Dead, and the opening band was Bella Fleck and the Flecktones. And so I heard Bella Fleck, and I've always had this kind of foot in, heel anyway, in jazz, and it was like the banjo and jazz and something else, and it just super intrigued me, and so I got one, and I sort of learned in a void though, I didn't have a mentor, and so a weird thing happened. And luckily I had this group of musicians to develop whatever little banjo style I had out of that. But it was Bella Fleck that started it, no doubt. And Roy Clark when I was a kid,
Of course. So what year was this sort of New York, New Jersey situation where you guys were like, this might be...
In the 90s. 5 or 6.
95.
Yeah. It has been when the gas tank was.
That was it was pretty fresh still.
That was quite a trip. Kirk and I were building houses for Uncle Jimmy, who was only 5 years older than me. And he wasn't my uncle. We were building houses, and so we pitched Uncle Jimmy's like, can we borrow your truck and a trailer to go to New York? He's like, yeah, boys. That's great, here's $500. Because we needed that $500 because we lost our ass on that. But So we drove a dual cab truck with big dually wheels, first time I ever went to New York, and a trailer, and we were driving through Brooklyn.
That was in the back.
And yeah, we had people riding, and we couldn't
In the
fit
bed,
everybody.
with a
We had
cover.
people riding in the bed where there was, like, we had a little topper on it, and it had.
Yeah, I had to talk, we were.
I spent 20 hours in that topper on the way home.
So yeah, so the first night, wherever in New York, like we're sleeping in a truck in Brooklyn. It was pretty fun. And then we played that Scrub Belly show, and that was shit. I chewed the label's ass out. I was like, we're your best band, why would you put us on first? And they're like, well, you gotta pay your dues. And I was like, fuck that. We're your best band. And so that was the relationship I had with the label, was like, whatever we're bringing you is gonna be your best band. So Kirk and I were very aggressive in those days. Like, and when I watched that documentary, the one thing I noticed is that we were good. In 2005. That's all I was doing in the band, was playing mandolin. I didn't bring a guitar. And I'll start playing the mandolin for this band. But it was like real natural for me. But that's all I was doing, was playing mandolin all the time. Eric was just playing banjo in that band. The four of us, like, I forgot like what a monster we were at that time. You know? If we'd have had another 10 years of the four-piece, you know, it could have been dangerous.
So you just said you and Kirk were aggressive.
Yeah. Like our band, Technodor Headrush, was so mean that the devil turned us down. And Scrub Belly was super, like, I finally listened to the Daddy's Farm album, which for years I thought was terrible because it was recorded on the ADAT in like 48 hours, and it just, like did 16 songs. Like we were doing really complex songs in that band at that time. And but I listened to it again just the other day, and it was really mean. It was a really mean record. And we had brought a lot of that meanness to Split Lip. Like with that San Antonio song that ends the record, that ends the movie, and all of that we brought. The meanness, and Jeff is just like, he is super aggressive too. I don't know if you noticed that, but like, Eric is a metalhead. He's a great musician, and he wants to bring it. And that's, when we have the four-piece, even the three-piece, we're badass. I'm an arrogant bastard, I know. The three-piece is badass, but when we were the four-piece, that was like the four horsemen of the apocalypse. Right? We're going to a place like, who are you? I'm Wayne fucking Godstein. That was like how we were in like 2002. We were like, look out, we're parting the Red Seas.
So that sounds cool, but how much of a pain in the ass was it for you all at different points? Like, Kirk drives hard, right? Is that what I'm understanding from the movie, but the little bits that I know about folks that knew Kirk better than I did. Was that a double-edged sword?
Well, I think so. I mean, I always felt like Kirk was sort of a headhunter in a way, like in the sense that he was gathering up these powerful forces around him to make conquest on the scene or on the world. To your question, I think it could be sort of problematic sometimes because, like I said in the movie, there was some times where he would have like a big pitch, and I talked about this, I think even at his memorial, where he was kind of like P.T. Barnum, like the great salesman, like where he would extrapolate and have the big lofty thing and sell you on this thing, like the George Clinton turned out to be George Clinton.
Which turned out to be pretty cool.
It was a cool show. That's cool.
I just worked something more than those. I just met the paper tiger. Or paper lion.
But, you know, I think sometimes, especially Kirk, but all of us had this mentality when we were in those hungry years or hungry days or whatever, but like, sometimes, you know, like you would sort of say what was gonna happen and then in order to make it manifest, right? And then sometimes it wouldn't. And so it'd be a little disappointing. It was like, here we are, like 3 weeks through this freaking tour, and I'm ready to like do anything but this. Sometimes, if Kismet didn't happen, or if everything didn't fall into place, and a lot of times it did. I mean, we lived kind of a charmed existence in a lot of ways. It was the right thing at the right time, and there wasn't much happening like it, and we were picking up like great booking agent on the West Coast. We were hitting these like crazy festival things, and you know, it was just kind of I felt like it was out of my control entirely, and I was just getting fed this information, like this is what you're doing in 6 months, and I was like, oh shit. Sometimes it felt a little, you know, that aggressiveness or that assured feeling can not work out and kick back on you a little bit to where you felt like you were out of control, and that's not a good feeling sometimes.
He was essentially sort of a coach and a cheerleader at the same time. And the P.T. Barnum thing, I can totally see. Can see that. It was hit on a couple of times in the film, the balance between like family and work, and how that balance has to sort itself out. Not you, Jeff, but the other two, and Kirk had to navigated that in different ways, and I thought there was really powerful moments in that film, especially like when you're asking him a question, one of your kids busted in the room and didn't answer the question, but you did.
I'm glad you got that bit.
Yeah.
Sometimes you do a thing like that, and I'm like, is anyone get what I'm trying to do here? I'm glad, thank you.
And I don't know, I don't really have a question. I guess my question is, you know, Kirk's decision to hit the road at that time. Were there discussions, shut me down if this is too much, but like, were there discussions amongst you all about, should we really be doing it? Do we want to do this? Or was there no question at all, like, we're following his lead on this?
Well, I think there were questions, but I think the question was kind of like, sort of like Colin says in the movie, like, you know, you have these young children, like, really? Like, this is, are you sure? Like, but then there was also no question because he was so resolute in his, like, I need to do this, I really need to do this, and it sort of like felt like he was calling in the banners, like, and I wasn't gonna say no to that. Like, I didn't feel like I had a choice.
I talked to him one-on-one about the things, and he was like, he wants to do it, so I'd be like, I'll do whatever shows you want to do. So, which I didn't understand then, but I do now. Yeah. Totally do.
Yeah. We're going to open it up to questions, and we could be here all night probably if we don't wrap this up. But, you know, thinking about the 30th and sort of being, you know, a celebration, because that's no small feat, and you guys knocked it out last night with, you know, several hundred people, thousands of people out there still following you, and if you went out on the road, they would still be there. I'm confident that would be the case. How does it sit now, Kirk? Where are the places that you think about him? How is it? Is it when you're rehearsing? Is it when you're, you know, pouring a cup of coffee?
I don't know, we still mention Kirk several times a week. I mean, we talk about it all the time. I'm not talking about it at home. I mean, it's, you know, I know we worked up a couple tunes for the show, and then I've listened to all the stuff. And I've just like, used to be, when we get in with a record, I'll be like, that record is finished, and I will not listen to that record again, and unless somebody's playing it, I hear it around or whatever. But I took all the records out and listened to, I have this bag of all the records. and there's a lot of them. There's a shit ton of records that I made with Kurt, Scrowbelly, all these cassettes that we made. I've lost the question and wandered off, but forgot what the question was. But yes,
You left Kirk every day. That's what the answer.
an incredible mark on us. We're fucking brothers.
Yeah, we think about it all the time. At home, my wife and I, it comes up a lot. And even when we were trying to figure out we did a show at Lucia a couple of months ago to get ready for this run of 30th anniversary shows we were going to do, and we tried to do those as sort of a secret show, where we had a false flag that like last year it was Black Chambray, it was the name of the band. And this year it was Constellation Prize, which Kirk he had all these sayings, like cliches that he would say, but they were a little wrong. Like, instead of Constellation Prize, instead of Consolation Prize, it was Constellation Prize, or instead of being resurrected, it was re-resurrected. Little things like that. So even just in trying to figure out what we were going to call our band for this secret show, a Kirkism, as we call it, popped up. And the film illustrates that he was larger than life and a huge. It doesn't do justice to say he was a huge part of the band. It was like he was still part of the band. So
I think we can probably open it up to questions now. I already see a hand.
Hi, I have to ask, what's the deal with the porcelain cat on the amp?
the porcelain cat on the amp.
What about it now?
Why is it always there?
That came from, it's not porcelain, it's actually just plaster of Paris. It came from a restaurant in Ohio. When we went to that, there was a weird cafe we went to, and they had all these plaster of Paris sculptures there. And at the time, I was in a phase of, like a Flying J truck stop, they had t-shirts that were 3 for $10, and they all had kitty cats and
Grandma
stuff. Yeah, that was, so I started wearing them all the time. And then I was like, oh, let me get this kitty cat thing, and now I just use it kind of like, I use powder on my hand as like a pool cue, like a lubricant on the neck. So I just keep powder on that cat, and I just go and pet. It's kind of a funny thing to pet the cat.
Any other questions right in the back?
Love the documentary and just wondered how we could watch it again. Would it be available on some platform usually?
I did like a limited run of DVDs that I think I've sold through at this point. I could consider maybe doing DVDs again, or like alternately, if you just email me, I can send you a link. That's one way. It's just my name at Gmail. Yeah.
GK@gmail.com.
There you go. You can all talk to me now.
Who's that band that you made that dance video for?
The Mates of State.
Oh my God, that was amazing. That was a brilliant video.
It's still from that same era. It's like 20 years old, but I've made a video for a band called The Mates of State on YouTube. That's me dancing in my room, and it's probably maybe the best thing I've ever made in my life. You can see that too if you want. Oh, they're from Lawrence?
Yeah.
Oh, crazy! I didn't know that.
I think you put it in the public library in Lawrence.
I could do that. I definitely have a couple copies that I could do that for sure.
Let me help too.
Okay, well, someone send me a list. Do you have my email?
Let's say hypothetically, I wanted to introduce Split Lip Rayfield to a bunch of 13-year-olds who I teach as 7th graders. Where do you think I should start? What's the album I should play for them that will hook the next generation?
Never make it.
Yeah, never make it home.
I agree with
That might be the pinnacle. Somewhere in there.
It's less angry than the first one.
It has more facets.
Yeah.
Hello, Susie Jones from Wichita. So I moved to Wichita to join the Air Force Reserve in 2007, and I bumped into old Wade Jones around the squadron, and we got to talking about music tastes, as cool people do. He's like, you gotta go up to Kirby's and see Split Lip Rayfield. So I went up to Kirby's to see Split Lip Rayfield. Wade didn't show, but I would feel real lucky to see you, because I don't think we could cram this shit into Kirby's anymore. And now we're too old for barleycorns. The last time we saw you there, couldn't see shit and went home. But you guys turned us on to Bloodshot Records, and a lot of my favorite artists were on Bloodshot Records. So I was just wondering if you could kind of talk about your experience.
Bloodshot, yeah, Bloodshot was really important to us in the very beginning. Scrope Belly, which was the band that Wayne and Kirk had with John Zell and Mitch Clay. They were signed to Bloodshot and then had made that record. But then it was just shortly after I joined the band, we played a show up in Chicago at the Empty Bottle, which is where Bloodshot was from, Chicago, and they offered us a record contract after the show, which is sort of kind of, in-house, because Kirk was already under contract at that point. But anyway, they had sort of an inside deal, Bloodshot Records did, at the South by Southwest Festival in Austin, Texas, every spring, and they had this cool showcase at a place called Yard Dog, and we went there several years in a row after that first record, and then when Wayne was in the group several times, and anyway, we got, that's where the Flying Kirk picture is from the Yard Dog.
On the cover of the DVD is the posters from there.
Oh yeah, that is right. But anyway, that put us in front of a lot of buyers, like talent buyers and booking agents and people that wanted us to open up these package tours, be the first of 3 or whatever, and Bloodshot, sort of like Sub Pop Records and some of the like Alternative Tentacles and other indie record labels. It was sort of in my opinion, a lifestyle record label, to where people were really into it beyond the one band. They liked the whole stable, and it was like a whole thing. So and Bloodshot was kind of funny though, because they were, they had a certain aesthetic too, like the hat, clothes, and whatever. But anyway, it opened us up to this entire kind of scene that we didn't have in Kansas necessarily, but it was in Chicago, and then through Austin because of South by Southwest, and we started picking up on bigger shows, and then eventually groups like especially Reverend Horton Heat was sort of our godfather. He took us out on the road like a ton of times and opened us up to
You know, I tried to interview
a
him for
bunch of
this.
people. It would have been a perfect person.
Yeah, he just led me on a complete runaround all over California. I kept going to his shows and then waiting outside when they were done, and they'd be like, "The Reverend isn't feeling it tonight." So I just followed him for like a week or two, and yeah, never got the interview.
Yeah, Bloodshot was super good for us though in the beginning. They had what record labels had, which was in-house publicist, and they had distribution for CDs. They had the ability to make CDs and sell them to us for too much. Yeah.
A large mailing list.
Big mailing list. It's a business model that doesn't really exist
Not even
anymore.
an emailing list, just a mailing list.
Right. It doesn't exist anymore, but I mean, I think maybe the label does, but that business model doesn't exist anymore so much. But eventually things sort of went south with them, and we split ways, and then we made up in the subsequent years, and everything's cool now. But it was huge to our initial growth and us getting like on the road and breaking out of, like, there's something to be said for conquering your home territory, and then maybe, you know, like an hour or two out from that, but being on Bloodshot, all of a sudden we were on a 3-week tour of the West Coast, like the first year, and it was like, oh, that's different.
I want to know what kept you guys going. Like, there's plenty of other bands that didn't survive losing a member, and you guys not only survived but continued to thrive.
I just have a desire to perform and play, and this is my favorite group to play with. I've got like 4 bands. I love playing with Scroll Belly too, and I would jam with them every day too if I could. But this is our best platform of delivery of the songs that we write, I think. I mean, I write all kinds of different songs. I got songs for different bands or whatever. And Eric has songs for different bands, and Jeff. But this thing has just been unlike anything else that we've ever created, you know. And it's the most different thing that, like, when we take it out into the world, we are completely different. I don't care if it's another string band or whatever. We are completely different. And it's a one-of-a-kind thing. And
It's easy to do with Travis Light.
Travis Light.
You're just practicing your, you don't have to worry about being too loud, you just practice in your garage.
I have an opinion about this. As an outside observer, I would say that your fucking fans are so awesome and love you guys so much. So love you so much. I'm sure all my fans
It does feel good. I've always described it as kind of a happy accident. You know, it's like we didn't really sit on some porch somewhere and be like, let's do this thing, and we planned it all out, and it sort of just draws you in.
I don't know how well it translates, like, from an old movie from 20 years ago, but being in those rooms when those shows were playing, it was incredible. Like, even just seeing a piece of it to me now, like, chokes me up. Like, the support that you guys have is really special.
That year was surreal. Like, that 6 months, you know, those shows, or if it was even that long, it was very, you know, I left the band, I went to work at Rayfield Aircraft, and in 7 months, I was like, man, no. It didn't go quite like that, but I just hated it. I hated not playing, and then when Kirk was sick, I was devastated. You know, when he said he wanted to do these shows, it's like, hell yes. There's no question.
You did it. John's got a question over here.
All right, I think I caught that. When these guys started, there's no other band like it, and they pioneered this kind of music. I just want to say that. It was mostly classics. Because there's people like
This maybe goes to the P.T. Barnum part, is how did Kirk Rushing get the two best guitar players in the state, the banjo and the other? The question is there going to be another record?
Oh, yeah.
Time will tell. We've worked on some new tunes, and time will tell.
Last one. Go for it.
You guys wrote a song called I'll Be Around. And it's one of my favorite solo songs. Real funny. It seemed to be an ode to Kurt Armstrong. It seemed like the lyrics might be things that you said. And I was just wondering how that song came about.
Larry wrote that song. Tell me about it.
I wrote I'll Be Around in a point where I felt like I needed to write some stuff, and that was, like sometimes as an artist, I'm sure as a, real artist, visual artist or whatever, that you feel like you have to push yourself into some work. And I had sort of sequestered myself into the cabin over there, the Burroughs cabin, and that was one of the things that came out all at once, like in one day, like the chord progression and the words and everything. But yeah, it was sort of a list, a reflection of some of my feelings and some of his sayings and his some tacit and some things that he actually said to me before he was passing away. He sort of wanted me to remember in a way. And and it also can kind of be taken away from that as to, in the sense that it could be about anyone that's missing someone that was super important in their lives, I hoped. And that, I don't know, in a way I'm still processing as I watch this film and feel the feels and feel all the Kirk, and be reminded of all the things that weren't in the film. I mean, it's hard to encapsulate all that in a 2.5-minute song, obviously, but I think that was just my attempt to kind of express feelings about that loss and feelings about loss that people might have that are more universal.
That album, the I'll Be Around album, and to scoot back just a little bit to Reverend Horton Heat, that was actually Reverend was actually the catalyst of how the three-piece came together, because after Kirk passed away, we never even really talked about it until the Reverend was going to come to Wichita. He was like, hey, why don't you boys open up for us? He said that through management or something. He didn't say it to us. But that's what I imagine he said, hey boys, why don't you open up? And so we actually kind of ran it by each other, and we had a jam, and we played in the Missing Man formation for a long time. We didn't even bring guitars into the first couple of, 6 months or a year or something. We just had assembled these songs. Eric had written some songs, and I had written some songs, and it was kind of that album. I listened to it too, and I was worried that it wasn't going to stand up, but it held up well, and it was like a statement in kind of the Missing Man formation. It was kind of an important album, regardless of the success of that album. That album to me was important. Turning point in continuing this thing we've got called Split Lip Rayfield.
You do
It
have
still
a thing.
sounded like us, I think, but it still honored the overall thing.
And I listened to it, I was like, it's fucking great.
Okay.
Yeah, it's really good, as good as any of the other ones.
Which is a good spot to round it out. And I want to just concur some of the things that have been said. Like, people love you guys. They really do. You're totally unique. Don't exist anywhere else. And you're also really earnest and hardworking. And I don't know if that's a Midwestern thing or not, but that's something that as I've gotten to know each of you over the years, like that has means a lot. And I think it's reflected in how people relate to you all. And I want to thank you for making this film because it is such an important portion of the story of this band and Kirk especially being a cornerstone of where we're at now. And so thank you for making that. Thank you all for being so open and being here and making what you make. So let's hear it for us.